Good evening, all. Welcome to episode insert numbers here of that 6 plus 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 show. We are untethered, we are unfettered, we are unchained, we are without constraints, and that because Chris is having a week off. So he's not here to shut us down. It's been a mutiny. We've got new team leaders. Who here is taking over? I put forward Aaron as being our new Capitan. What do you reckon, Jack?
I mean, he's got the look for it, right? We need someone who projects authority. It's not us two.
So. I've done enough management that I know that I'd rather be second in command because I have 10% of the responsibility and 90% of the perks.
Yeah, so you have a Starscream air about you.
I will. Murderous.
Yeah,
whingy, I think.
Wow. Here I am committing a coup. Putting you in charge. Oh, you're a bit whingy, you are.
Well, you're second in command. I've got to keep you in place.
Have I got to do my best Grima Wormtongue? Yeah, don't listen to the master. Oh, he has your worst interests in heart. Anyway, I think we're here to talk about Warhammer. Are we here to talk about Warhammer? That seems like
legends
something we should probably do.
Yeah, it's probably advisable.
As the prophecy foretold. So, how are we doing? We'll go to you first, Aaron. How have you been? You been up to much Warhammer stuff?
No, not a lot. I've done a little bit of painting. No, I've done a little bit of painting, I guess.
A little bit of gaming?
Painting and gaming. I've done a little in-session game, like three of us working around a game between CSM and Custodes last night, which was really good, just talking about it from all the different angles. And then, I've been painting some Tyranids for a bit of fun in 80s shelf suit themes. So
very nice.
Yeah.
That's pretty snazzy. And you said you'd played some games. You want to fill us in on those?
Yeah, so as I said, CSM versus Custodes, just to see what they were like, and just a lot of talking through each of the games and each of the turns and the plays, and being like, "Are you sure you want to do this? Why are you doing this?" Like really breaking it down for a training game, and ended up with a very small victory to the Custodes, but it feels like very much a 50-50 game. So it's pretty interesting to see because obviously it's very scary, the shooting of CSM.
It's disgusting, isn't it? They've got so many guns.
Yeah, but it's scoring high early and just shutting them down and blocking them in so they can't get their secondaries and primary too much that enables you to sort of eke it out.
Lovely stuff. Any other games?
No, apart from that, last time I played was at the Goonhammer Open.
You can't even remember the game that we played. It's just gone from your memory.
Oh, was that a game?
Yeah, so you were testing into my I was testing my first iteration of the list that I think I'm going to talk about because I'm going to be taking it to LGT, and I think I played it fairly poorly, and you just did all the right things, and I got fucking folded. Turns out Custodes still slapping melee. Pretty solid army there.
Still one shot of Great Unclean One.
Well, you say that only just that bit is a bit
Still
not as cut and dry. It did happen, but you did have to buff your unit to the 9s. It take a little bit of damage. I still feel happy about the things that it does in the list that I've written. So I'm still.
No, I agree.
But lovely. Jack, how about yourself? How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastically. Thank you for asking.
Excellent. And have you been up to much Warhammer stuff?
Since the data slate, I've only had one game. But I've
slacking.
Yeah, I know, especially for me. Just work clapping the old cheeks, so I can't get as much time as I want to on there. But
yeah, schools are back, and it is brutal.
Yes, it is. I had to turn so many things off and on again. You have no idea. But I had one game against Rob Strukari. We played about 3 turns of that, and then he tapped out. But again, it was more of another learning game, like you said, Aaron. Tau feel good. So I can't. That's all there is to it, really. Feels good. Feels good to be buff.
it's a tonal shift for anyone who's played Tau for the first bit of 10th edition, that's for sure. Suddenly, Tau players have smiles. They've got that glint in their eye. That means that nobody else is going to be having a good time. And even when I'm not playing Tau, I do quite enjoy seeing that.
We still hate ourselves, but we win games.
I don't
while
hate
we
myself.
do it, right?
I just recognise that I'm a bad person while I'm playing Tau, and it's totally fine. It's not a problem. No remorse. As for myself, I have been scrabbling to work out what the hell I am doing because LGT is like 2.5 weeks away. Not even that. 2 weeks and 3 days, which is a little terrifying.
You're a special snowflake.
Well, I looked at all the armies I had. I was like, well, they didn't nerf Eldar much. Do I enjoy playing Eldar? No. Do I want to play Eldar? No. Got Custodes. Custodes are pretty fun. I don't really have the right setup here. Do I want to play Custodes? Maybe. They could be a fallback option. And then I thought, do I want to play Tau? I've got a lot of Tau stuff. Maybe we'll just see which way the wind goes before I rip all of the arms and guns off my Tau. I'm pretty interested in seeing who has the best ideas before I start mutilating models, because I think there's going to be a lot of very bad Tau lists out there, and I'm excited to see those more than I'm excited to see the good ones. And then I was like, well, I was thinking about Chaos Knights. I was concerned they were going to get nerfed. And in some ways, you could argue they did, because the Brigands, which was the best unit in the book, went up 10 points. But then the Carnivores, which was the second best unit in the book, went down 20 points. So if you took 3 Carnivores, you were at parity with where you were before. As soon as you put a 4th Carnivore in, you're, money in the bank. Pimping ain't easy. You're 20 points for each Carnivore. I am actually only running 3 in this list because I can't fit any more in. But so my fears were unfounded. But running 14 War Dogs is just a bit too vanilla for me. So I've been searching around trying to find the little special snowflake niche that I wanted to carve out for myself, and I think I've found one. But we'll get into that. Good. So, we've got some people in chat. Zito, Simon, and Pickalax. Good evening to you all. Also Aaron, but Aaron's here. Oh, and Rob's here as well. Yeah, I played a good practice game against Rob, and it was a really close back and forward game. And after we finished the game, I had a very narrow win. It was 10 points in it, but it could have swung either way if I'd gone first, for example. At the end of it, he goes, yeah, I think Drukhari are the worst army in the game. And I trust Rob's opinion, because he's played more Drukhari than most people have had hot meals this year. I think that's fair to say. He plays a lot of Drukhari. So when I scraped a win, I was like, oh, this doesn't feel anywhere near as good before you said that you think they're the worst army in the game. But it's fine. It's fine. And I'm confident in my life choices. So all 3 of us, at one point or another, and by that I mean 9th edition, played quite a bit of Tau. So Tau are pretty good now. They are probably the most exciting in terms of changes. So I think now is a good time to just talk about some Tau for a bit and go, isn't this great? Aren't we really happy with everything that's happened? Before we talk about the changes, Aaron, what's your favorite style of Tau? What sort of units do you want to be playing if you run Tau?
It's all about the battle suits for me. That's why I like them. It's just want to be out there, mechanized, just jumping around. Yeah, that's all I want out of my Tau.
You and me both, buddy. So I assume you're also pretty pleased with the changes that have come in.
Slightly disturbed by the changes,
yeah, because we're not playing Tau at the moment.
But yeah, that, and it's just like there weren't little changes. There's massively drastic points drops. Like what? I can't remember off the top of my head, Jack. What did the Crisis blob go down by 6-man? Was it
30 points?
5 points per model. So yeah, 30 points.
Yeah.
So it didn't need that.
Considering it's in every list, you're probably right.
But they had such a low win rate, and we all know that win rate is representative of how good a faction is. And it's definitely not something that I harped on about when I was playing Tau loads in 9th edition, when they were really good, but they were just played by people who breathe through their mouth. Yeah, I'm not saying that they were like in a good place before. I think they were okay if you played them really well, but couldn't really compete with the top armies. Then the top armies got taken down several pegs. They've gone up several pegs. They're looking good on the ladder.
Yeah, I think also like I played him in my first tournament at 10th, and because of the way the armies were set up and things like that, there was a lot of large vehicles, and then like the only opposite to that was a lot of hordes and things like that. They didn't
Mm,
have, they couldn't get the output to handle both types.
yeah.
And I think like where it's starting to coalesce a bit more now, it's a lot easier to get that war gear options better set up.
Mm. Yeah, they are looking solid. How about you, Jack? Before we go into the actual changes, what are your favourite units to bring in Tau, and are you pleased about them?
Honestly, I'm all about sort of mixed arms Tau. I like a little bit of everything. I can't stand those lists that are like, I'm going to run 18 crisis suits, or
That's how I write lists.
or Triptide, or or
I run both of those lists.
or the list I've seen is like 6 Breacher units in Devilfish. That doesn't look interesting to me at all. Anything that's just like, I'm going to find one unit and I'm going to take the max of it. And I'm like, that doesn't seem
I'm
very
gonna
interesting.
win. That's not for me.
Well, it just doesn't seem very interesting for me.
That's fair.
I always
That's
like a little
valid.
bit of everything in my Tau lists. So, yeah, basically.
I am just looking at your Tau list. You've got at least duplicate of every unit, I think, in there. Nope, that's a lie. There are some one-offs. Fair enough. Fair enough. The list that I wrote definitely had significantly more bricks of crisis and less other things. So
Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to put 75% of my points in one thing.
that's
Yeah.
fair. Yeah, that's valid.
Too much of a skew is not great for me.
I live for the skew. I came up like my first, I think, proper competitive list that I wrote, and it was competitive for playing as a 15-year-old in a Games Workshop. But I was running full Dreadnoughts and Death Company back in 5th edition, and I was just like, cool. So all your anti-infantry weapons do nothing. This is great. You can only kill me with las cannons, and that was when I fell in love with the skew. I was just like, cool. So half your army's going to do fuck all, and then I'm going to beat you in the face with some bricks. And that was my love for vehicles or monster spam really took hold. All right, so I mean, let's get into it. Let's talk about some of the Tau changes. Jack, you really are a resident Tau expert, and you know best on these ones. So give me your top thoughts on the Tau changes, and we'll chime in as we go.
Okay, so the Tau changes were interesting because it wasn't just units that were like not good that went down. It's also units that everyone took that went down.
It was kind of just everything, wasn't it?
Yeah, near enough everything. So the stuff that wasn't good went down, and the stuff that was good. So your stealth suits have gone down, your crisis went down, most of the commanders went down. In terms of the big the moneymaker thumbnail clickbaity point change that went down is the Riptide, right? That went down 55 points.
That was a lot. It's now maybe playable.
Which is like a quarter, went down like 25%, something like that. So that's a big one. And there's just lots of sort of like 20-ish% changes across a lot of the army, which there's no rule changes though. That is the one thing that they do. Sort of, you don't have to think about that anymore. Is you don't have to, if you're playing against Tau, you have to play against them any differently. They work exactly the same. It's literally just they have more stuff.
That's fair, and I think what they were doing before was good. I think lots of people won't have seen how they play, but having seen your games, they had that firepower that could really just decimate, and then you could play around. But it was limited to the crisis brick. Now you've got more units, so you've got more mission play, more incidental firepower around that massive brick. So it's interesting to see how that's going to come about.
The biggest issue I had playing Tau before was that you'd have like 3 or 4 units that do all your damage. And if you lose them to a mistake, or your opponent does some like crazy cool maneuver that you just get caught out by, you're like, oh, I've lost 2 units and my army's gone, I can't do anything. But now we have more stuff on the board, and it just sort of gives more leeway for attrition, I guess. But there is also the aspect of with the way that For the Greater Good works, the more units you have on the board, that sort of like they compound into each other. They give more units to spot for each other. and so the units that you still already have on the board are it's like I don't think of the word. It's like a compound interest of good stuff.
Yep.
Like
basically what you're saying is price goes down,
Synergy.
stonks go up.
Yes, correct.
That's
buy low, sell high.
And you definitely did buy in low, to be, your absolute credit.
So low.
So I don't think they were anywhere near as bad as that.
38%. No, the numbers don't lie, Ed.
I mean, hey, 38% for a non-elder army, that's not bad. That means into the general field, that's like 55%.
Yeah, no, you're
maybe
not
that high, but yeah, no, you were having some good success. We've got some more in chat. Lee, good to see you. We've got some interesting opinions here. Simon says not the Farsight. Talking about the points cost. Farsight's marksman still the same. I couldn't tell you what that was. I don't think I've ever run one before.
He's a sniper dude. He's a lone operative that sits on your home objective.
That is true, but you know what has kind of gone away? All that non-line of sight spam. So, weirdly, I think non-line of sight is now better for the armies that can take it because people aren't expecting it, so you're not going to see as much.
It's not for Tau.
Well,
not going to be taking it.
Yeah, you've got other things. I do like William's opinion in here. Skyray greater than broadsides. I want to hear your thoughts on that because I know I can see from your list you're not running Skyrays.
I'm not, and I'm running broadsides.
You are.
So, I mean, I don't run bad units.
That's a strong statement to be making, but hey, you've got the most reps with the Tau. I did like. Is it how many shots do they have with their Seeker missile platform? Basically,
3 shots, strength 14, AP 3, damage D6 +1.
That's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. Tau anti-tank is basically like there's like 3 levels of it, right? So you get your hammerhead at the top, which is 1 shot, super high strength, super high P, super high damage.
Yeah.
Right, and then you come down 1, and you got the Skyray, which is like slightly more shots, slightly less strength, slightly less AP, damage D6 +1. Right, so that so it changes things up a little bit. But then you go down another level and you have the broadsides, which are also less strength, but more AP, same damage. But they have way more shots, right? So you basically can can pick across the spectrum of damage to sort of AP and number of shots. Which is really cool. The problem that I have with Skyrays is, well, I say it's not even a problem, right? Because it's just a preference thing. I think taking Skyrays as a preference thing against the other units is I have like 9 or so D6 +1 damage weapons in my list.
Sure.
And I'm like, I've rolled like 3. Like the amount of times you roll 3 damage and be disappointed is a lot. So I prefer the hammerheads because I just want to mix up the damage profile I have in my list.
That is absolutely fair.
Because if you get that 1 hit through and minimum 7 damage, even if you roll like a 2 or a 3, you're not really disappointed because you've done like 8 or 9 wounds.
That's fair. Yeah. And you are very good at rolling 6 to hit with Overwatch with the
I really am, aren't I?
it's fairly disgustingly consistent. And before anyone makes any aspersions, this happens online. So not only in person, I think I've tanked some hammerhead blasts to the shots.
It happened.
It
happened at EA Slam. Don't you worry. You better believe I rolled a 6 on Overwatch to shoot a hive turret and one shot.
It's one of those where like it's mathematically just probably a bad choice to make that Overwatch call, but then you do it, and then it goes off, and then you win the game. 1 out of 6
times, it happens every time.
The maths don't lie. The numbers don't lie. I do like looking at the data sheet again. I do like the Skyray. It's as William says, you can get a reroll to hit or wound. It's the
Skyray is a fantastic piece, especially for stuff like Storm Boys, Deep Striking Your Backline, Interceptors. You get rerolls on that Overwatch, especially on like 10-3 and later, where you got exploding hits. Sure. All of a sudden, that Skyray becomes really, really good. It has an inbuilt marker light, so it's good for like secondary spotting.
Yeah.
So it has a lot of good things about it. It's just for me, my list is so saturated on D6 +1. I just don't want to go for it. And then the hammerhead's the same price now, so you can just chop and change it. So
Yeah.
For me, it's purely a preference thing.
You know what? I think we'll start seeing more Skyray when there's more Tau, because the reroll hit rolls against fly units,
Yeah, 100%.
everything that Tau have fly, suddenly this becomes a really efficient shooting platform with that one reroll in there.
Fly's very much out of the meta right now. Marines barely run it. Custodies don't run it. Knights don't run it. Really, you're
Don't
only
worry,
taking it
Knights
for
are
like
out of the
Eldar.
meta.
Yeah, Tyranids don't run it on anything you want to shoot at with a Skyray.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at like Eldar, other Tau.
Hey man, I'm sold. I think
some Necron vehicles, not all of them.
The Necron vehicles, I think, typically went up a little bit, so we're not really expecting.
This is what I'm saying. People are going to switch to destroyers, which are not.
Well, they fly as well.
They do have fly, don't they? Yeah, I was thinking, I'm like mounted or whatever they are. Like, yeah. They're fine, but you'll play like half your games and you won't use that reroll to hit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think it is kind of a whichever you like more is gooder.
Exactly. There's a lot of that in Tau, I think.
The one thing I will say in defense of the Hammerhead is the devastating wound change means that they're actually really good at killing big things now, because now it's just you don't get a save, you don't get a feel no pain unless you have an actual feel no pain. None of that mortal wound bullshit. If that changes back, maybe my opinion switches a bit more to Skyrays now that I've looked at them. But I don't think if you've got either in the list, I don't think you should be too upset. You're not a fool for that. Cool. Any other things in there that you are super excited about?
The Riptide is actually, as mentioned, is really interesting because the Riptide brings something that Tau didn't already have, which is essentially an armature body. That's pretty much what it is, with better armor and invulnerable save. That will sit in the sort of.
It's an armature body. That's better in every way.
It's not the toughness 10. It's not toughness 10.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
But it has no combat, but it does have a 72-inch range gun. But its no reactor may be a shadow of its former self. But it can sit on an objective and not immediately die, which is something that Tau were missing before. So it's really nice to have that as an extra option when you're playing your games, especially since a lot of Tau lists went down conveniently almost by 2 Riptides worth. So you
That's just very interesting.
You just put 2 Riptides in, and you're pretty much good.
60 points. Well, I guess I've got 2 Riptides that are sitting on the shelf, and I like that you can. Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah, I think that while it's still sitting as it is with the dev wounds, the fact that they can do that once a game on their big gun gives them a bit more of a threat that they didn't used to have. I think that's quite nice as well.
What's really nice about that is that's a great Terminator killing tool. When I don't know how do Tau fare into like the Terminator brick with the the -1 to wound and the sitting at a good armor save.
It depends. Most people run Cyclic Ion Blasters, which really get ruined by the likes of Custodies and Armor of Contempt factions. They don't like that at all. If you run the Plasma,
I do. You've got me sold. I think the Plasma's great.
They take them off for fun. Tau absolutely rinse Terminator equivalents. And just to answer William's question, I think we're going to go over this later.
But pretty soon after we stop gushing about Tau.
Yeah. After we stop talking about how amazing my faction is.
Yeah, when we stop talking about Tau, we're going to talk about Tau. So don't worry about it, William. It's coming soon.
Yeah, not that amazing. Not amazing enough for nerfs.
Don't nerf it.
Yeah, don't nerf it.
Realistically, you've probably got 3 to 6 months, and it'll be So they just have to. You can do well at LGT, and then you've just got to sandbag some events and make Games Workshop forget that one good result that you really were happy about. That's what you've got to do.
That's what I've been doing up to this point. Sandbagging.
You've been doing fairly reasonably well at events, haven't you? Especially for a pre-data slate. Whatchamacallit. All right, Aaron. Any other thoughts on the Tau changes that Jack hasn't gone over? Anything that you loved?
Why did they reduce Longstrike by 30 points?
Well, he was 30 points too many.
But he's not as good for that. Like, he's almost the same points as he's cheaper than what a Hammerhead was before. He's infinitely better. He's much better than a standard one. And then if you're going to have another one in there as well, it just gives you that benefit, that little
Mm.
bump. And that.
He's 140, so he's 10 points more than a hammerhead. And I don't
I-
think the hammerhead.
I-
I think the original hammerhead price changed.
Yeah, it was
By that pretty
145
little.
before.
Oh, was it 145? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I remember now. But the he basically gets +1 to hit, and he gives another hammerhead lethal hits, which means you won't get devastating wounds, which is less of an issue than it was before. But if you have 10 points extra in your list, you could just swap out a hammerhead for long strike, and you're not losing much. So he's fine. I did have that at one point, and then I needed those 10 points, so he just went back to a regular hammerhead.
I think that's fair.
I did find it interesting that a lot of the drops have been on units that are being used as well, like the stealth suit, the ghost kill.
Yeah.
All of those.
Yeah. Another interesting one, the biggest point drop percentage-wise in the entire index was Shadow Sun, actually. She went from 140 to 100, which is an enormous points decrease. Before she was like a take it or leave it, like, again, a preference pick. But now she's like really points efficient. She has 2 strength 10 melters, 18-inch range, I believe. And a reroll 1 Zora, which is very valuable in Tau for several units with railguns. And she regens CP on a 5+, which I don't think is limited by the battle tactics change, because it just says if you use a stratagem within 6 inches of her.
Yes, because it's not altering the cost of it, so it would just be regen.
Yeah, so she's very, very, very points efficient for what she does. The problem with Shadow Sun is the other commanders went down in points, which will also be a similar cost, which I will cover in when we go over my list later.
Yeah.
But she is very, very good. I think a lot of lists could like start with Shadow Sun, and that would be very, very reasonable. She's a very good force multiplier.
She's also just got Learn Operative and Infiltrate in there, so
she does.
Yeah, just more things that are good on a 100-point character.
Yeah.
Although that is a little anti-synergistic with maybe using her as the buffing battery that you might want to. It's flexibility, I guess.
Yeah, no one's going to just shoot her off the board randomly.
No. All right. Well, I think that's probably enough talking about Tau. So let's go on to talking about Tau instead. Lists. Lists. So these are not finalized. So if you see any changes for LGT, don't at me. We can do what we want. You're not my dad. You're not my real ladder.
It's in the chat.
So, Jack, yours is up first because we've just been talking about Tau. So let's maybe we will move on to a different. Do you want to mute up for a second, buddy?
Am I not muted?
Not yet.
I thought I was muted.
Nope. There we go. I can't hear you. I'm hoping that that's because the alarm stopped, but I think it's because you found the mute button.
Yeah.
No worries at all. All right, cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a break from Tau. This was the plan all along. And are you back?
Yeah, and I'm using the right mic this time.
Hey, perfect. Cool. So Tau, never worried. Always going to talk about Tau first. Smooth.com. This is what happens when the glorious leader isn't here.
Yeah.
We get car alarms. So walk us through what you have, why you've got it, and then we'll tell you you're dumb or brilliant.
Okay. So I've got a Cold Star with Exemplar of the Carrion with 6 Crisis suits. I've armed them with 2 plasmas and 1 Cyclic Ion Blaster. Did have them previously with all plasma. Problem I has is there's a couple of matchups where you really need that rate of fire, Orcs being the primary one. But Tyranids are also one where you kind of want an extra load of shots, and Necrons. But those extra like sort of 12 to 15 shots 8 extra shots you get from Cyclic Ion Blaster. Yeah.
Total,
yeah. So yeah, the extra over the 7 plasmas are like just enough to push you into the territory of, okay, I'll kill this Orc unit. Like it's not a problem anymore. So yeah, but I really didn't want to lose the plasmas because they're so good into Custodes. Anything with Terminators, anything -1 damage or -1 AP, the plasmas are just so good.
Yeah.
And they've done so much work for me. I'm loath to get rid of them. I'm going to skip the Enforcer for a second. Talk about him in a moment. I got 3 broadsides, triple railgun. I mean, they're really reliable, really solid.
Are you running them as 3x1 or a single unit of 3?
1 single unit of 3. I did want to run them as 3 separates. The problem is you then have to spot for 3 different units, which means you then have 3 units which are not getting spotted for. And originally this list had Shadowsun in it, so reroll 1s was like it's a lot easier to keep the aura on 1 broadside unit than 3.
Sure.
It also means because I run my broadsides with 1 marker drone and the rest missile drones for the ignores cover when they spot if they need to. So it just means you can put more missile drones in there, and more guns is more gooder. So the Ghost Kill is good for holding midfield objectives. 2 Hammerheads, as I mentioned before. 3 Piranhas solo, they're mainly there for holding single objectives and stuff like that. Like backfield stuff, screening. I was using Crew Hound stuff before, but Piranhas are toughness 7 with 7 wounds. So they're much better at it. And now with the changes to measuring from holes for vehicles, they cover a much larger area of the board. So you don't have to measure like the distances from the base. So that makes them a lot better at screening. 2 Riptides, as mentioned before, they can move forward and sort of become a front line. You can put a Ghost Kill, a Riptide, and a Piranha on an objective, for example, and you've got like 9 odd IC on there, and it's pretty solid. And then 3 units of 3 stealth suits. Or maybe 2. I can't remember. I wrote this very quickly. Anyway, they're just good for spotting and infiltrating and stuff like that. The Enforcer is the sort of special secret source that I've been running in this list. So he is 100 and I want to say 20 points.
Yeah.
And he has 12 shots at strength 8 AP2 damage to. And he has precision of the hunter, which gives him +1 to hit. So he's sitting on 2s. And on turn 3 onwards, he gets +1 to wound. So if you spot for him with double exploding 6s, that can get very nasty very fast if he comes down on turn 3. I basically cut out Shadowsun and put him in because in my head, I haven't tested this yet. In my head, I'm imagining this is going to be incredibly annoying for someone because if they don't screen out for this one guy, he can just delete a unit really easily if you're not careful. But yeah, I feel like if I'm going to have Shadowsun's great, right? But you can play around her very easily. She just sits in your backfield and buffs a bunch of stuff, which is very points efficient. And she can, hold objectives and be lone operative, blah, blah, blah. That's all great. But it's not a playmaking piece, which I don't have tons of in the list. I think that's kind of like an area where Tau struggle because they don't have a lot of stratagems like Phantasm or, there's like weird tricky stratagems that let you do like nonsense or like compound a bunch of like strats and unit buffs together like in like Necrons or Death Watch used to be. We used to and then you just obliterate something. They just shoot you really hard and either you die or you don't. And that's basically the Tau game plan. So I wanted a model that could be really annoying and with a really small
base.
Yes, thank you. Really small base that can that people have to be careful of for a long time because the longer the game goes on, the stronger it gets. So even if you don't deep strike him in turn 2, you don't feel bad about it because he comes in turn 3 and he's got +1 wound with strength 8.
Yeah.
And let's say he can also pop at that point he can start popping the +1 AP stratagem as well. You can use it from turn 3 onwards. And that's strength 8 AP 3 damage too, which is actually 50% scarier.
Especially since pretty much everything that you care about when you shoot with Tau ignores cover. So that's if you're like a Terminator player, you've got to think about that as if it's AP 4.
Yeah.
But
the ability to force the opponent to screen for the first maybe 3 turns of the game is very powerful. And he's a very good rapid ingress tool as well. With stealth suits giving you free rapid ingress. There's all kinds of jank you can do with a model like that. So that's my goal. He's a 2-up armor save. He's got like 9 wounds or something, 8 wounds with shield drones.
Sure.
He's annoying to deal with.
So, I love that. I love everything about that. That's the sort of jank that I love to put in my list to finish it off. Why the Enforcer, though? Is he the cheapest of the 3?
He's not. The Crisis
No.
Commander's the cheapest. The Crisis Commander's 2 inches faster, but he has
Yeah.
1 less wound.
He's
and
also
1 less
got a
armor.
smaller base as well, I believe, so it might make it...
Very slightly.
Yeah. I think it's a 40 mil to a 50 mil.
Yeah. I also have an Enforcer and not an extra Crisis.
Cool. That makes sense. I'm with it.
And I've never been able to put my Enforcer on the table, so this is a perfect excuse to do that.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
I would like to take my Enforcer.
I like... It's funny, I like both of the other commanders here more than the Enforcer, but I don't think your choice is wrong.
Yeah.
I value the movement because I'd like to come in and fire and fade, but it's 2 CP, and at that point you're paying so much for a gimmick, especially if you're using the exploding strat.
Yeah.
The AP strat. I think I might be overvaluing the movement and undervaluing just being annoying to remove.
A lot of the time he's going to come in and die, right? Which is fine. But he's going to get 1 shot off. But that extra wound and the extra pip of armor save, 2 up armor save in cover, very good. So you will just be able to be like, I've just rolled a bunch of 4-ups this turn and I've not died.
Yeah, so it forces your opponent to commit actually something to getting rid of it.
Yeah, exactly. You have to put something substantial towards it. Whereas if you have the Crisis Commander, who's let's say less wounds, less armor, it's going to be a lot easier to get rid of. And I don't think I'm going to be using Fire and Fade on him very often.
That's fine.
Because the Crisis unit is on the board and they require it more a lot of the time.
Entirely reasonable. Thank you for answering that question. We do have a bit of discussion going on in the chat. Simon B reckons that you should split the broadsides into a pair of 2 in a single model.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at that. That comic where the guy's like, I can't fit in this 4th broadside, or can I? Looks at essential part of list that you really shouldn't remove. I would love to have because I did originally have 2 and 2 broadsides, which was fantastic. I did split them down to 1. Because in this list I've got the Crisis unit, the broadsides, 2 Riptide units, 2 Hammerheads, and the Enforcer. That's like 7 damage dealing units where I was on like 3 or 4 before. And you've got to manage all your spotting as well. So realistically, I don't have enough spotting units for all of my damage dealers. So if I start splitting them down further, it's all going to get a bit difficult to manage. And I think it's going to become less efficient because I'm not going to be spotting for the broadsides all the time. So I totally, there is in theory it's great, but I think in practice for when you're actually playing. When you're trying to make everything, all the puzzle pieces work together on the board, I think they work easier as a 3. And I do also, because I've got the Firesight Marksman, I do need something to sort of sit around an objective and not just immediately die to, I don't know, teleporting Deathwatch.
Oh no, don't worry about that. Deathwatch are dead.
Plasma dudes. What are they called?
Hellblasters?
Hellblasters, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe Hellblasters aren't dead.
Was there any thought towards having Tetras in the list, Jack, because of the rerolls?
So I like the rerolls to 1 to wound more than I like the full rerolls to hit for the Tetras. Because it's 6s are double explode rather than 5s are sustained 5s. It's the same maths if you reroll all the dice and reroll just the misses. It makes the Crisis a bit more reliable. But the reroll hits it doesn't. It's not like wow, I need this unit. It's so reroll hits the main thing about the Tetras actually is the fact that they're toughness 7 wounds and they'll sit on an objective and be annoying. And do secondaries and be annoying. That's the best thing about them. And if I had infinite money to buy a unit of Tetras, I would just buy. I probably have a unit of Tetras, but I don't know. I wouldn't have 3 Piranhas, 3 Tetras units. I think that sort of WTC style of list is going to be gone now because I don't think you need it anymore. Because that was more towards objective play and secondary play, whereas Tower have now got enough critical mass
damage.
Yeah, enough critical mass on the board that you don't need to so heavily index into your secondary play, and you can just try and kill people. which is really what Tau's all about. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Tetras are great, but I don't feel sad for not taking them.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll move on then. So that's a good 30 minutes of talking about Tau, I think. So I hope everyone who likes Tau content was happy with that, and the rest of you, suck it up. We've got Custodes up next. And Aaron, this is the list that you think you might be taking. You're definitely taking to an event this weekend. So I think,
Yep.
are you planning on seeing how it goes and then tweaking from there?
If it's something terrible, I'll tweak it, but I can't see myself doing it as in like the timelines of what's going to happen. Like it's not too dissimilar to the list I was playing before the data slate either, and I enjoy how it plays. They're fun games, they're interesting, they're aggressive, so I'd probably keep this unless something absolutely drastic happens over the weekend.
Yeah, and I can definitely vouch for the aggressive nature of this list. Like, it just pushes units at you, and you go, that's a lot of models that I got to kill. I don't feel good about this. It's a real pain in the ass, that's for sure. So, walk us through. What have you gone with?
Yeah, so I've got 2 Blade Champions each attached to a unit of 5 guard. One's got the Veiled Blade just to get some extra attacks, and obviously once per game being able to go, I've got triple OC, so I'm OC 6 or 9 on my own, which is pretty good for just helping to flip an objective to your favour, or obviously taking one off an opponent. And then the Ceaseless Hunter on the other one to allow the fallback charge and shoot, but obviously quite importantly the 6-inch move once per game if they end within 9 inches of you. Then going to have Trajan in a block of Wardens. This is to give the Wardens a bit more output because obviously they don't get the rerolls like the Guard do. But also, it's to have an option for a second fight first. Now that they've made it so we can't do that twice a phase, it's nice to have the option to do it again. And then, as well as obviously, then there's another 2 units of Guard, one of 5 and one of 4. The 4 is generally sort of starting in Deep Strike, trying to rapid ingress or sneak in and get things against certain matchups. So we'll just sit on the home objective to make sure that is totally safe. And then there's a couple of Alaris Custodians. Again, nice bit of mission play off of them. But because they're so small, they're very difficult to screen out, and they're quite good at stealing home objectives or just getting into some of the armored targets that can be sitting in the backfield. There's then some prosecutors. Essentially, I had 40 points left, and I was like, I'll just get some action monkeys or people that can sit on my objective when I don't have to worry about protecting it so much.
Cheap mission play is always good.
Yep. And then the Witch Seekers are for the scout move because essentially, I find with Custodes you want to push on to 2 objectives in turn 1. And they give you a nice throwaway unit to do that with. They also allow you to quite easily get into within 6 inches of the center if you get deployed teleport homers or you get area denial turn 1. So again, a bit more mission play, and they can be quite annoying in certain matchups for like GSC and things like that with their flamers. And then finally, just the Calidus. I know it has the Vect, and the Vect isn't as good as it was. I think I forgot to Vect in most of my games when I played at Goonhammer because I was just too busy trying to punch people in the face. But I was like, oh, I should have Vected that, shouldn't I? I was like, yeah, I'll do that next time you do that. But yeah. So the main thing for me with the Calidus is it's just that it bounces up and down every single turn. It's a tiny little 32mm base. It's almost impossible to screen out. It just gets you so many points, and again, because it's a bit of a pain with its lone operative and its 4-up save, they've really got to commit something to go and get rid of it. Against you, I put it in a stupid place, and you got to kill it with a carnivore.
Well, you say you put it on a stupid place. You put it on your home objective, and then I was like, I can rapid ingress here because you've got no one within 12 inches to charge. And then I just got to eat it for free.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was the only sort of like big money move that I was making in that game there. There wasn't a...
When you say eat it for free, do you mean made a 9-inch charge?
No, God, no. So I rapid ingressed in 12.1 inches away from a brick of guard that he had on the board. And then I was like, cool, I'm just going to go take your home objective now on my turn.
Oh,
And,
right, you shot the Calidus. Okay.
No.
He overcharged it in his turn.
Rapid ingress.
Oh, I see. Right, yeah.
I
Gotcha,
walked
gotcha.
forwards 14 inches. I ended up about 5 inches away from it, less than 5 inches. Made my charge, and just had a great time. Rolled some
Yeah,
dice.
I know what rules are. I know what this game is.
Yeah. Well, you don't need to know about the melee phase as a Tau player, so.
Yeah. I don't need to know about half the rules of this game as a Tau player.
Don't need to know your opponents because
Yeah.
they're dead.
Ultimately, the list is just built to aggressively move against your opponent and pressure them. But the reason I prefer it as the 5s instead of the 10s is it's a lot easier to bounce them up the board and protect them in cover and behind obscuring terrain, etc. Whereas that's basically impossible when you were with people running the 10-man bricks. I found the only way. I think the 10-man brick was better in the mirror against the MSU of the 5-mans, etc. But I think overall, the 5-mans have got more play, gives you more board control.
I really like that the list style that you enjoy playing is now the way that you have to play Custodes. That's really worked out quite well for you.
How
Like,
convenient.
None of the changes really affect you. The change to the battle, you can only nerf certain strats. You're like, fuck it, wasn't using it anyway. Can't run 10-man blobs. Cool, don't care. It's all worked out quite nicely for you. The is it Ceaseless Hunter, the enhancement where if you move within 9 inches of that model, it gets it. That is incredibly frustrating to deal with.
Yeah.
It is a nice thing to give your opponent a choice and like, well, I'm going to move towards you. Do you want to come out so I can shoot you? And they've got to, make that decision. But really, it's incredibly frustrating when they make the right decision, don't come out, and then next turn get free movement on you. That's it's not something I enjoy. But yeah, any thoughts on the changes to Custodes outside of the list? Obviously, it looks like you're fairly unscathed. But any changes that you are particularly upset about with the index?
No, not really. I think the change to obviously the fight first. Sorry, I think that's fair. Like it was very oppressive. Like, but as you can see, you can get a couple of extra points out and get Trajan in there. So you've still got it in 2 places for most of the game. And then again, it could only be a second time on that unit that had the shield captain anyway. And I think that the Blade Champion's much more valuable because of the aggressiveness of it, the ability to reroll your advances, your charges, and then do an advance and charge once per turn just changes the reach and the ability and the threat range you've got.
I really like the changes like that in my mind make Custodes or a certain army player have to make a better decision. Like I think that the people who are running more than one squad of 10 buffed Desolation Marines were making really inefficient list choices. Now no one's going to do it because they're dead. So this is in a way a buff to Space Marines because people were making inefficient choices. So I wonder if you could argue that getting rid of the captain actually makes the lists way more efficient because now you've just got mid-sized bricks that always have that threat of advancing and charging.
Yeah, and it was like it's made it so that I can take Trajan. So it was like Trajan wasn't quite there when you had the captain and you could do the fight first in 2 places off of that. But now it's like actually, yeah, he's just you look at him and you're just like he's so much more baller. It's just so much fun to play with.
That 12 damage, 12 attacks is brutal.
It's that sliding scale, right? Like where you got one end of the spectrum is like army's hard to play, high skill expression, and the other end is like easy to play but very forgiving. Right, I feel like Custodes was more towards the forgiving end before because the big units they could just you could abuse the stratagem affecting all of them, which is like 500, 700 points out of Custodes getting affected by one stratagem, but now because you're splitting them up, like you have more potential to like play missions. MSU has always been better for mission play and stuff like that, so you have more potential to like make big plays and stuff like that, which I'm guessing is why you preferred this list before.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a lot less forgiving for mistakes, I guess, because if you do leave that one Custodian guard with his butt hanging out, some dickhead Tau player is just going to clean the whole unit off with a unit crisis.
Well, when you brought that up, I do want to say, interestingly, Tau have moved further along the line, and now they're easier to play and more forgiving because they've just got way more stuff. And I don't think that's necessarily. It's not necessarily that they've moved in like too far. It's just that they were too far in the other direction before.
Yeah. Well, Tau were really underpowered, so it's only fair,
Yeah, I think the only thing that upsets me about the change is the Alaris Terminators are just that little bit too expensive now, so I can't run a unit of them, and they're just such cool models. So
Yeah.
that's my
I
only upset.
the my counterpoint to that is the Forge World Aquilin Terminators. I think it's Aquilin, whatever they're called.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
now the same points as the other Terminators. Even though I've looked at the data sheet, I'm like, oh, I probably just never run these over the
Are they the
normal
ones with the awful melter gun and the power fist?
They can have a lightning claw instead.
Okay,
You
right.
shouldn't give them a lightning claw, but they can have one.
But they're really bad, right? Like I've seen them. They're really bad. I've played against them. They're really bad.
They're not that bad. You could like argue that if you took the power fist, because it's strength 10, I think it's basically a spear, but it's strength 10 instead of strength 7. So like that's a little nudge in their favor. And then the gun wise, you could give them a flamer if you wanted some way of dealing with hordes. You were concerned about, I don't know, the onrushing Gene Stealer. Not Gene Stealer, Tyrannid horde coming at you, and like, I'm going to take 3 with flamers and maybe help with that. But
Flamers
yeah,
seem quite tasty, actually.
they're not bad. They're a 6/11 flamer, but then you look at it and you go, oh yeah, it is D6 shots on my, I think, 70-point model. I don't love
Is it
that.
twin linked?
Don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think you really need to worry too much like on like the horde armies, like when it's
Yeah.
Gene Stealers or coming at you, or Termagants, Hormagants, stuff like that. You've got 10 shots per 5-man, and you can shoot twice once per battle. So
True.
2
If they
damage.
charge you, you say, "I fight first."
We
and
don't
you
even
kill
worry
them all.
about fighting first.
Yeah.
I've done this most of the time. You just let them hit you, then slap
That's
them.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
What are they going to do? What are you going to do? Nothing. J Sharp in chat says, evening, chaps. Evening to you as well. I realised I have been lax. I have not chilled at all. So thank you, everyone, for watching. Do give us a like, a follow, all of that good stuff that you hear people plug on YouTube. There is a link tree in the chat there. Not in the chat, in the description box. That takes us to many things. Our Patreon, which you can give us money if you feel like doing so. I've talked about it before. I'll do it next week. But there's also our Discord. Get in Discord. Ask us questions. If you want me to ridicule the questions you ask, or maybe tell you that you have a brilliant mind, it is a 90-10 split. You are more likely to get ridiculed. But, whack your questions in chat. We are going to be going to viewer questions probably in the next 10-15 minutes or so. So if you have any questions, do put them in the chat there. But yeah, join the Discord, ask us questions. We'll maybe answer some of them. Moving on. My list. You may look at this list and say, Edward, that's a lot less words than the other one. And that is because me go smash. Me no need multiple things. You may notice that there are no enhancements in this list. Why is that? Enhancements are bad for Chaos Knights. Like, they're so expensive. Why would I run those when I could just run more model? More model, more gooder. So I am running a Stalker. I resent running a Stalker. It is such an inefficient use of my points compared to the other War Dogs. But you got to take one because you've got to have a single character to make an illegal army. It's got the Melter just because Melter good. It's got the Claw because that's better in all circumstances apart from if you want to sweep some things. And I think this has got enough firepower to deal with the Gaunt Horde. And then it's got the Havoc Launcher. The Havoc Launcher is a theme throughout this list. Every single War Dog has a Havoc Launcher. Turns out Havoc Launchers are actually quite good. They were really kind of shit in 9th edition. You took them because you're like, God, I need to clear out that half-dead squad of guardsmen that I chipped away at last turn. But now, non-line of sight is significantly... it's not anywhere near as bad as it was. So the profile for a Havoc Launcher is D6 shots with blast, strength 5, AP 0, 1 damage. That doesn't sound too threatening, but you've got 10 of them. And that is not an insignificant number of shots. It's pretty good. I find that there's 2 ways you can play this. The first is if you're playing those knife-eared motherfuckers, you can just sit back for a turn or 2 and go, cool, all your scoring units are dead. I played against Drukhari last night, Sunday night, one of the 2, and he did nothing turn 1. I was going second in a mission with good end of game scoring. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do nothing turn 1. And my version of nothing was I picked up both of his units of mandrakes just from behind cover. I was good. He did nothing to me, and I picked up his scoring unit, so that was very frustrating for him.
You can't call Drukhari the knife-eared bastards. You can't kick them when they're down.
What shape are their ears?
Knife-shaped.
There we go. It's less about their win rate and more about their toughness profile.
Oh, just pure racism. Okay, gotcha. No worries.
Yeah, but only against pretend races, not any
Yeah,
real ones.
Of course. I wouldn't suggest anything otherwise.
If you're watching, I'm going to be a good role model. Don't be racist.
Yeah. Don't do drugs,
That's
kids.
the Votan.
I'm not. No, if you do drugs, I'm not condoning or saying you shouldn't. If it only harms yourself, I don't care. Racism harms other people. Don't be racist. I feel like I'm in like a 1990s
After school
TV.
special.
Yeah, that's it. After school. Did
Mm.
you know that the words you say can hurt other people, not just emotionally, but physically?
G.I. Joe.
Yeah, before we go really off the rails, and we turn this into like some sort of Christian band camp, I'm going to go back to talking about Warhammer. So, J Sharp, these are not guaranteed lists. There is chance of a last-minute switch, but Aaron, I think it seems pretty locked in just through logistics.
Yeah, unless something desperately bad happens, this is what I'll be taking.
I'm borrowing half the models, so I'm pretty locked in. I think I'm happy with this list, but if I test it and I lose all my games, then maybe I'll do a last-minute panic switch. But I need to prep a lot of models because hold on, let me just grab one of my war dogs I have here. Here's a war dog. You may notice it has no hat, so work needs to be done. And I think Jack might have a little more wiggle room, but I'm assuming that the chassis there is pretty much there.
Got an event this weekend. I might just go be like, nah, Sky Race. Like, I might do that. Who knows?
After we've talked at length about how they're actually not the right choice for the list, I love it.
Yeah, but I'm famously A, a hypocrite, and B, indecisive. So.
Excellent. Love to hear it. So, back to the list. We've got a Stalker. We've talked about the Havoc launchers. The other thing about Havoc launchers that's really good is Chaos Knights now kind of have an army rule. They didn't before, but now they kind of do. So the combination of their army rule and their detachment rule is if you're within 12 inches of them and you are below starting strength, you have to take a battle shock test. And you are also at -1. So you can just kill like one Marine in 3 squads a turn. It's something like that. 3 or 4 Marines die if you roll average. Someone do the numbers, I'm too lazy. But that means when they get close to you or you get close to them, suddenly they're having to take multiple battle shock tests at -1. And now they can't just insane bravery the one unit that fails. They have to call their shot ahead of time, and they can only do that once. Suddenly you almost have an army roll. So that's pretty neat. But either you're killing loads of cheap scoring units, or you're going, I'm just going to make you take loads of battle shock tests, and you're going to be really frustrated, and it's going to, you're going to mental boom, and that makes my game easier. Job's a good one. So, Stalker, resent having him. 6 Brigands. These things are money in the bank. Pimping out easy. They are ballistic skill 2. They have 12 shots at strength 6, AP 1 damage, and then 2 shots with a melter that's strength 12, and it's melter 4. Also, if they're shooting the closest eligible unit, they get +1 AP to their shooting. So 8 strength 6 AP2 1 damage shots is back. I've got 72 of them. That's really good. Like, that just does what you want it to do. It's basically unnerved from where they were in 9th edition, and their shooting was good in 9th edition, and the game got toned down. Totally for real. No, I'm not joking, guys. Then we've got 3 Carnivores, which is one of the only melee units that aren't painted gold and called Custodies that are worth taking. They got 20 points cheaper. I wish I had more than 3, but if I want to do my dumb bullshit, I can't take any more than that. The points just don't work. Again, they've got Havoc launchers, which are like stupidly effective. You can just be like, oh, hey, I've got all of these shots that are coming in. Yeah, they're only hitting on 4s, but you can't, I'm just going to chip away. Oh, I've killed a model. Sucks to be you. So they just feel great in every phase of the game. They're really good for rapid ingress targets. I like sticking 2 of them in reserve if I can. Rapid ingress 1 on turn 2, rapid ingress 1 on turn 3. Just make your opponent have to think in phases that they don't want to be thinking in. Then I've got a Demons detachment. So I hope that I'm the only person with a Great Unclean one at LGT. It seems unlikely because there's going to be 800 plus people. but that would make my little
Probably sold
special
out.
snowflake. Yeah, my little special snowflake
1,000.
heart sing. It'd be good. So what the Great Unclean One does is it is incredibly tanky. It's 250 points, and it is way tankier than a knight. It has 20 wounds. It's T12. It has a 4-up invuln at all times, and it has a 6-up feel no pain. You can put that on an objective, and it probably survives taking Custodes to the face for 1 turn if they don't have Trajan in. If they have Trajan in, fuck it, everything was going to die anyway. But like outside of that niche case, you can kind of sit in there and go, "You're going to hit me? I actually survived for a little while," which is very valuable. What it also has is it has a decent flamer, so you've got a nice Overwatch target. You don't really have good Overwatch in this list outside of the demons, and it gives you at the end of your movement phase, pick 1 unit within 12 inches and reduce its toughness by 1. That's really good. Hey, all my melter is strength 12. So if I make all your big tough stuff that was T12 toughness 11, now I wound you on 3s with my melter. That's a nice breakpoint. Or, hey, you're running Custodes. Shame about all that T6 infantry you've got. I'd like to kill that 1 unit. Now it's T5. Now I wound you on 3s. Don't talk about, I think it's wardens that get -1 to wound. Just don't talk about them. It's not a problem. I think it's a really good tech piece. It just kind of does a little bit of everything I want, and you can deep strike it in and put the pain on a unit. So it's very hard to avoid doing. It does only move 7 inches. Don't worry about it. If you started it on the board, it moves 7 plus D6 because I don't care about shooting it, whatever. Or you deep strike it in somewhere. It's a great rapid ingress target. I found that when I was playing into Drukhari with all of the Dark Lance spam, I rapid ingressed it on turn 3, put it on an objective where 2 units could see it, and my opponent went, and then didn't shoot it at all because he just knew he couldn't kill it. So that got me a primary that helped me eke out a small win. Really flexible unit. Then, as Jack says, the Burning Chariot tech. He thinks it's a sleeper ally for Chaos. I absolutely agree. For anyone who doesn't know, Burning Chariot, it has 3 shots that are like half decent anti-tough infantry or anti-small vehicle tank. But it ignores cover, and then the unit that it shoots loses the benefit of cover for all of your other guns. So to recap, I can put loads of, for example, say there's the Custodes brick. I could turn off cover for it, make them -1 toughness, and put 72 shots into them that are strength 6, wounding on 3s, AP2 1 damage. If I line things up, that is like a delete button. We'll see how it works out in practice. I didn't line it up against Aaron, which is why he's smirking. He got to kill it. I think you got to kill it before I got to use it effectively. It did make my non-line of sight shooting slightly better, but yeah, that's not much. And then I've got 3 units of 3 Nurglings. They've got infiltrate. The main way to beat a vehicle list is to stop them from going anywhere. So now you can't do that because I can just forward deploy 3 units, or I can use them for deep strike in for mission play or do some dumb shit. They can also make it really hard to kill the Great Unclean One if you just linger nearby, because if you're within 6 inches of them in combat, you're -1 to hit. So you just add another defensive layer to the Great Unclean One. It's unlikely to come up frequently, but you can just kind of sit them behind a wall and be like, charge me. You can't, because you can't avoid it now with how charging works in 10th edition, because you've got to get into base to base. It's very, very frustrating there. But yeah, no, I think it's more interesting than just running an extra 3 or 4 War Dogs. It sparks more joy, and I don't think I'm missing much, because once you've taken the 6 Brigands, you're not really getting any good shooting, and I think 3 Carnivores is the minimum you want to run. Anything on top of that is nice, but I don't think you're too upset about losing anything on top of that.
It's a really,
I really like it.
It's an interesting list. I think Chaos Knights. I mean, I don't like them because I think they're Tao's worst matchup.
Nice.
But something that I really appreciate is they are the kings of being annoying in Warhammer. Between Battle Shocks, Nurglings, and the Great Unclean One probably not dying when you shoot it. They're just and the other thing is the Great Unclean One giving the 6+ Feel No Pain to. How many you're going to shoot that Nurgling in, and it's going to survive on like 2 wounds because of the 6+ Feel No Pain, and you're going to be so annoyed. you will be battle shocked.
Yeah, I should probably talk about all the jank you can do with this. So
There's so
you've
much
got
jank.
you've got like shooting output efficiency, so you can get exploding sixes against a unit if you dedicate all of your shooting from multiple units into one of your enemy units. It's only a CP. It's very good. You can walk through walls. You can spend 1 CP in the movement phase of the charge phase, and you can just move 2 war dogs through walls and enemy models as if they weren't there. That's pretty good. That makes carnivores really tasty. If you go second and your opponent moves forwards, you can get a charge off if you want it. It doesn't matter how you deployed, how they deployed, you can get a charge off, which is fantastic. You've got the usual rotate iron shields and then some other guff, but yeah, there's lots of little tricks you can do with the list. I'm excited to put it on the table and then potentially just get blown off the table by Eldar, but we'll see. I think there might be some play to it because of the rapid ingress shenanigans you can do.
What I do appreciate about you, Ed, as a person, is that you look at Chaos Knights, Knights in general, as pretty much the ultimate stat check list,
Yes.
right? And you look at them and you think, what if?
How can I add more stats?
What if Great Unclean One? What if I just put this Great Unclean One in a list?
So
and just make someone even more miserable playing against me.
There was an iteration of the list that I wrote that was 6 brigands, 2 Great Unclean Ones, and then the Decimator. And I couldn't make the points work. I was ending up with like 110 points off in one direction or something along those lines. But I was like, the shooting is so efficient. And I've got these 3 fat bricks. I can't, it'll never die. And then because I couldn't make it work, I was like, oh, fuck it. I've got to, write an actual list. But I really, if I could fit a second Great Unclean One, I would drop the Chariot and the Nurglings 100%. Like, it's such an annoying beefcake to kill.
On behalf of everyone you're going to play LGT, what a shame. What a real shame that is.
I think this is a better list, but like it would be more annoying to play against. Yeah.
Definitely. Burning Chariot is a weird one. Like, I always see stuff like the Burning Chariot, and I'm like, 1 Burning Chariot. I'm like, that could be 2 of something. Like, I don't know. It's just like, it's not that the Burning Chariot's not good, because you look at it, it's like, was it 9 wounds, toughness 8 with a 4-up invul, something like that, right?
So I'm running it purely to make the 6 brigands better. Is the
yeah, but it's like kind of tough, right? It's still tougher than most vehicles that fly around.
It's not bad because that 4-up
right?
invul is quite nice. It's going to be frustrating to deal with. It gives me another flamer as well if I want to set up Overwatch shenanigans, which as Rob can attest to when we played on Sunday. You can just cover quite a lot of the board with a flamer on the Burning Chariot and the flamer on the Great Unclean One, and then suddenly all those scourges shouldn't be allowed to move. They did move, and then I rolled Overwatch and I killed 1 model, and I was very sad.
I guess I was coming from the perspective of, could this be 2 units of dogs, or 2, like, I don't know about flamer units, but flamer, like exalted flamers, or screamers, like fast things that are also good.
I mean, the list is fast. Like, I don't feel like I need, because I've got the 3 units of Nurglings. They're like the cheap do things. I
think
feel
the extra resilience it gives you, and that sort of, how do I deal with this question for your opponent, on top of that little combo with the -1 damage to crank up like the Chaos Knight shooting output as well. I think it really I actually think it earns its place. I think it's probably the better option out of the lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm definitely grasping at straws to try and like create conversation around your list.
No,
I do think Screamers are underrated, just as a side note. But yeah, you are probably right at the Burning Chariot, especially in a list where you have so much shooting with the Brigands, and they probably make their points back quite quickly, especially with Havoc launchers everywhere.
I think you'll see lists with 2 Burning Chariots and some Nurglings, and maybe a lone operative demon, and not the Great Unclean One, by, peasants, people who don't know how to write lists, people who've never had an innovative thought in their life. I'm the Steve Jobs of Warhammer!
People that don't literally feed on the misery of others.
Craig in chat has pointed out to me that I only play asshole lists, which are about stopping your opponent from doing things and thus having fun. People tend to enjoy playing against me. I hope they seem to anyway. I think it's just that we have good games, and I try to be a fun opponent despite my list being a not fun opponent.
But I mean, why be loved when you can be feared, Ed? Right?
Yeah, well, be both. Be both. We've had a surprising amount of chat in the chat there. Jack says Burning Chariot Tech. Think it's a sleeper ally for Chaos. Read that one already, but yeah, absolutely. J Shap says the Great and Clean one should have Towering for the flavor. No. Towering should go in the bin. Rob says he's glad that he's making us feel good about our lists. Obviously, Rob's playing Drakari, so yeah, that's
The old team punching bag.
yeah, but he's really good with them. He was winning lots of
Yeah.
games back in 8th edition when he was playing them, so don't feel too bad for him. Mentioned Dreadhound.
Rob Charlie Bucket Kimpton.
Oh god. Jack says if I owned 6 Predators, I'd run 6 Predators and the Chariot in my CSM. I like that. I like that as a concept.
Underrated unit Predator.
Yeah. I did try building a vanilla Chaos Knights list. I didn't like it. The Ceresis Lancer is funny in Chaos Knights. It is. I really like the what's the one with the gat? It's not the Lancer. It's one of them gives exploding sixes. I was thinking about putting that in.
Okay.
And William says thoughts on the Yavara back to Tau. You got any thoughts on that one?
The problem with the Yavara and the Ravana is that
They're bad.
They're bad because they're lore units, right? They're fluff units. They come from an Imperial Armor book where they are the prototype Riptide, so they are inherently worse than the Riptide. The problem is they are also more expensive than the Riptide, despite going down in points. They didn't go down as much as the Riptide.
Yeah.
So the Yavara you can do cute stuff with it. You can go really, really, really fast with the Yavara, which doesn't do anything when it gets there. Is the problem?
Yeah.
Which is, it's just, like why take a Yavara when you could take a Riptide?
Well, it's of course when you go, I've got 3 Riptides, but how do I get a 4th Riptide into my list?
I find the idea of taking a couple of or 3 Storm Surges more than this.
Yeah, you were talking about that. Let's look at the Storm Surge because they have things. How many points are they?
400.
On the nose.
Went down 75.
I think they only went down 5 points. I think they're only 405 before.
Were they not? I mean, I think of an old version of their points.
I think they were 405 on launch. Then they went up when everything went up with Towering. So I think you're both right.
The best kind.
Yeah. So that's a lot of words on a data sheet there. That Storm Surge.
Yeah. The Heavy Walker you can just ignore. It barely ever comes up. Support system ignores hit modifiers. Titanic or Towering, you can re-roll the hit roll. All useful stuff. Most of those guns, again, you can just ignore those. They don't actually, you actually need them. The only one you really need to look at are the Pulse Driver Cannon and the Pulse Blast Cannon. And they all come with their problems, I think. They're all like 75% good, 25% not good. The Pulse Blast Cannon, like the big one, the 20, like, strike 24, AP6, damage 12, we love it. And it's 24-inch range, and it's like, and Towering changes, so you can't just see everything on the board.
Yep.
Like,
and then the dispersed profile, it's only AP2.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like.
And then the Pulse Driver Cannon, it's D6 plus 3 shots instead of 3 plus D6.
Yeah,
no, I see what you're saying.
It's a decent chunk of shots, but it's 400 points, and you might get 4 shots out of it. A damage 3.
Aaron and I were looking at this on Sunday, and I think we both really liked it. But you know what? I think we both forgot. You can't shoot all your piddly guns at units other than the thing that you've been guided on, because you'll be hitting on 5s.
Yeah, that's why you hit the Flamers.
Yeah.
The one thing that a lot of people forget with the Storm Surge is destroyer missiles aren't one use only, like the Seeker missiles are. So you do get that extra 1 like strength 16 AP4 damage D6 plus 2 shot, which is fine. It always has some anti-tank ability.
That's one destroy missiles. Ugh.
Yeah, yeah, you would hope it has to, but unfortunately
Yeah.
not. They're fine. I think if you can take 3 and have a very funny meme list.
Yeah.
But I don't think a triple Storm Surge build is going to be a competitive army. Although that might just be my my
Anti-spam
obsession.
bias.
Yeah, my anti-spam bias. But yeah.
Okay. No, fair. No, I think that's reasonable. I had forgotten that all your small guns were going to be doing fuck all. So yeah, that is. And it's
Probably
only
not in
tier
range
11 as well.
anyway. Got 18
Yeah,
inch range or less, so.
true. Well, let's wrap up with some listener questions. There's not very much in the chat, so you've got about 2 minutes to put it in the YouTube chat if you do want to ask us any questions. If you're listening back to this down the line, come and watch us live. Ask us questions. I don't bite much, and the guests are usually really fantastic. This week, but your face there. For any of our podcast listeners, Jack has perfected the puppy dog eyes, and he looks like I have mortally wounded him by shitting in his kibble bowl.
I'm well practiced at looking sad, I can tell you.
Yeah, you played Tau in the early 10th edition. So, in chat, what have we got? I think we have literally one chat. Yeah, so I just want to address as well, just to make stuff says it's important we follow up questions with some general conversation just to confuse Ed as he tries to skim read. I've got my eyes on you, boyo.
You don't want to make an enemy of Ed. You really don't. Like,
yeah,
like
I'll vaguely sass you online and
Yeah.
nothing else.
It's all fun and games until when he is vaguely sassing you online. But then when you like go down to your kitchen to get milk at 3 a.m.
Whoa, I'm going to stop you there.
And he's in the fridge, like
Allegedly.
yeah. You know, it stops becoming funny. That's what I'm saying.
I'm going to move on before people find out. So the one question. Oh no, there's two questions. Moving on. So Just Make Steph does ask a good question, which is why he's not eternally dead to me, and he's allowed to sass me. He says, to Vect or not to Vect? That is the question. Is Vector a free battle tactic still worth bringing? What are you boys thinking? I'll start with you, Aaron, because you love using your Vect effect.
I think as long as it's on a unit that you want to take anyway, and you're not taking it just for that, then I think, yeah, why not? It's a nice to have. It's not as widely destructive as it was, but I think it will make a difference to certain matchups. Like as an example, for playing against Custos, you can still add a CP to the -1 damage strat, which is a pretty big strat to do it to. And I think it's still just going to be sitting there on some of them. You just don't have the plethora of options that you had before.
Yeah. I know when I was talking to Chris Radford and we were looking at the Death Watch list prior to the event that he did very well at. Go and listen to the interview that Tom did with him. Great interview. Great chap. Lovely guy. And we were talking beforehand about whether it was worth running double Vect, and we came down on the side of probably not. I think it probably actually would have been worthwhile, purely for the Eldar matchup, being able to double Vect their Phantasm or Vect the Phantasm and their Fire and Fade, or any combination of. It didn't feel great into GSE because they had so many good strats that they just go, okay, I'll use a different one. But it was great. And now, as you say, it's like, am I taking the army, or do I have 15, 20 points just to spend on an enhancement that I didn't want to spend those points on anything else? Yeah, that's sort of where I come down on it. How about you, Jack?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the Vect, I think it's, if you're taking it anyway, like with the Calidus Assassin, it's worth taking. In Necrons, Nemesis Zandrek is kind of worth taking.
Sure.
Like, so you might take him. So stuff like that, I think it's worth it. Or if it's an enhancement that gives you that ability, I don't know if there are any of those, but those are fine. I don't think you want to take something specifically for the Vect. I sat down with Rob actually, and we went through all of the factions. We had it all out in a spreadsheet for like what factions have what as battle tactics and whatnot. And it was only worth it for 4 factions at most. And it's so matchup specific. It's just not worth it. Like especially if you're something like if you have to spec a special character for it, or have a character that only does Vect and doesn't do anything else, it's just not worth it. In terms of free stratagems, again, it's army specific. For example, Necrons probably aren't going to take the Overlord anymore because the strats that they get access to being free aren't worth it. But Space Marines probably will, because they they can get a couple of good battle tactics out of it. But again, if you're running a character has an extra ability in addition to that Vect that is very useful, then that's probably not going to stop you taking it. It's just a nice little extra to have if it gets tacked on the side of something else or is extremely cheap.
Sure.
So
Okay, cool. And then the only other question in there, I believe, was Ultimate Funk, who says, "Are scout moves a trap?"
No.
I don't know why they would be. No, I'm assuming that he's asking that from a perspective that I don't understand. So no, I don't. I'm not being shitty about it. I'm assuming there's a part of this question that I'm not understanding why, because on the face of it, scout moves are very good. They just give you more maneuverability, give you a bit of flexibility after deployment, let you rearrange, get behind a wall, do some shenanigans, yada yada yada. Scout moves always feel like good. Maybe he's saying, is it a trap to spend points on units with scout move? Do follow up on that one, Ultimate Funk. I don't think I've seen you in the chat today, so we'll get back to that on a later podcast, because I'm interested to know why you're asking that.
I don't know. In 9th edition, was the scout move before or after the roll for first turn? Because I know in 10th edition it's after. Yeah. So you have all the information, right? So it's never a bad thing. If you just bomb it forward 9 inches or whatever, if you have second turn, then yeah, it's gonna go bad. But if
Aaron's
you use that
taking
move,
notes with his Witch Seekers.
if you
don't
use that movement,
run forwards.
yeah, especially if you use
Doesn't
that
make
movement to move
sense.
behind a terrain piece, especially on the UKTC boards where they have like a lot of terrain pieces in the middle for you to get behind. It's super useful. I use it all the time on piranhas. Very helpful to get behind terrain pieces. It feels like a no-brainer. I don't know if I would take units that have scout because they have scout. I don't know if I was like, I really need scout in my list. But if I have units that have scout as a bonus, I'm like, sick.
I think the thing you'll find is the units you want to take for scoring like piddly secondary quite often have something like lone op or scout also on top of it. It's part of the reason you want to take them, but not the full reason. So yeah, it feels like it's a pretty good ability. If there's something we're missing there on that question, do clarify, and we'll come back to that one. C or Sai says, when will we do an updated version of Yuumi in the UKTC? That is a great point. I am an unbelievably busy man at the moment. It's very upsetting. I'm doing too many things, and it's all self-inflicted. It's all things I enjoy. But it'd be good to have it out for LGT. I don't know if I can. I might see if I can put together here's a quick overview of the missions from like if you've played a little bit of 10th, but not a lot of 10th. I might have time to record something like that, but I'm not making any promises. If I don't do it for LGT, I will reboot I'll probably, even if I do a short version, I'll do a reboot of the series once I feel like the maps are fully locked in, because we're seeing a lot of changes. I think post LGT we'll see quite a significant change as well. So there won't be a full series before LGT.
We want our triangles back.
Yeah.
Well, the core concepts I discuss are still the same.
I think there'll be mission changes as well post LGT.
I think so, yeah. So if I get chance, I will do a quick overview primer for LGT. That would be good to put out. If not, probably start recording them, I would think, a couple of weeks into October, beginning of November, when we've seen some changes of the mission pack and we know what's going to come up for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and then I'll be set for the new season.
Yeah. Sean says, can you share that spreadsheet, the spreadsheet about the battle tactics? If are you happy to share that one? If yes, don't put it in chat. Put it in Discord.
I have the ability to. I refuse. No, I'm only kidding. It's not. I didn't make it. It's the stat
Hmm.
check one. So
I
I will
see.
find it and I will post a link to it in the Discord.
Fantastic. If you go to Discord, let's say it'll be under community resources, which are resources that you can use as part of our community. Fantastic. I think that was all of the questions there. So thank you all for tuning in as always. Really appreciate, especially all of the regular viewers, everyone who chimes in chat. You're all fantastic people. You make it a real joy to do this. And I hope you had a great time. Bye for now.